Hello. Welcome to the Valhalla Movement podcast. We've got a incredibly interesting guest who I know you guys have heard about. David Wolfe with us here today. We're going to be talking about everything from source water to how you can move your life into being healthier. How can you move yourself into being healthier? How can you change your life in an active way? We want to hear it directly from the source. One of the leading experts on such. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm doing the best ever. How are you doing? Great to talk to you.
Ah, fantastic! I've been looking forward to this since my buddy Marty's been lining this up, and I mean, the information you have on this is blowing us away. Everyone, I think, in this eco-green permaculture type movement seems to have heard your name, so it's been great to have you on.
Fantastic. It's been a long journey to really penetrate the permaculture movement with some of the ideas that I really have been a champion of. For example, hunting spring water, which I know is of interest to you. So I'm just really, really happy that information has finally come of age and that we've gotten to that point. I can't even tell you. It's really awesome. I'm elated.
Yeah, so before we get into spring water, I just wanted to point out that you do have an event coming up here in Montreal. If I'm not mistaken, you've got something that's lined up with Crudescence. We're going to
That's
put
correct.
the link in the description below and all that kind of stuff. But it's on Saturday, October 12th, which is by the time this podcast is being released this weekend, and Sunday, October 13th. It's basically a 2-day conference where you're going to be talking about, I don't know, you tell me what the topics are.
We're going to cover everything from living foods, raw foods, superfoods, super herbs, herbal hunting, like, for example, mushroom hunting, shaga hunting, reishi hunting, lion's mane hunting. We're going to get into spring water. We're going to talk about interesting strategies that have been figured out about how to heal ourselves and about how to bring balance into our lives. And it's really also about getting back to what's normal and natural for us and reconnecting to the earth and reconnecting to the cosmos and our own true path. And I really believe that the best health is always granted to those who follow their passions.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you guys want more information on that, visit davidwolfe.com, wolf with an E. We'll put that in the description below as well. But let's just dive right into it. I mean, look, the other day we had a podcast with Daniel Vitalis. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
He's one of my good friends for many, many years. We've had many adventures together. He's great.
Awesome. Yeah. So we had a podcast with him, and he was talking about his website, findaspring.com, and we were talking about how, source water and real source water is the best thing that you can possibly drink. We're making a move towards that. And then, I've had it before, but, obviously I live a lifestyle, bottled water, tap water, whatever it is, whether I have a Brita filter or reverse osmosis, all these things, they all seem to not be as healthy or as the best option. So finally, last week, we actually went and found a spring that was not on the map, and went to it, filled up a whole bunch of jugs, drank directly from this basically waterfall, and it was just amazing. Can you talk a little bit more? Maybe we can elaborate a little bit more as to why spring water is the best option for people.
Okay, well, one thing is it's the blood of the earth. It's the mother's milk of the earth, and it's natural source water. It's the way that it's always been, and we actually have an instinct on how to find spring water. It's built into our being, and all you have to do is just reconnect with that. It's really an awesome return home.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we're dealing with water is that the conventional water, our tap water, is really the bottom of a trough of every toxin in our environment, from pharmaceutical drugs and chemotherapy that people are urinating out into the sewage systems, which comes back in as tap water, to every different kind of contaminant, including the high amounts of iron and calcium that build up in our pipes. Everything. I mean, every single contaminant you can think of that's been introduced into the world, and actually, in my count, since 1940, it's 77,000 different chemicals that we've created since 1940. It's all in tap water. So tap water is not, there's no way ever to drink tap water under any circumstance. There's no reason to do it, and you should never do it. It's too dangerous. What you really want to be doing is just going after the source water in your local area. Eau de source, as they say in Montreal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's there's a bit of a challenge to doing that. Obviously, it takes a little bit more time to go out there and do it. You got to prep, you got to prep and have all these bottles and things ready with you when you go. But it is fairly an easy process. I mean, it took us maybe, I don't know, about a half-hour drive from where we are. Went, filled up, I don't know, 10 large jugs, and it's something you could do every once in a while. It's like a little family outing. It brings you out into nature and stuff. Now, I know what people are thinking. They're like, yeah, okay, source water, that's great. But like, is it really safe? Like, are there, why is this any cleaner? People have this association that if it's running off a rock or in nature that it's dirty. And I don't believe this, but I know that other people, when I talk to them about us going out and getting source water, we're like, yeah, but what about algae? What about this? What about that? So what do you say to those people?
Well, God made dirt, dirt don't hurt is the old phrase there. It's actually, depending on the source of the spring and the type of spring that it is, the colder that the spring is, the higher the altitude of the spring, the longer the history of the use of the spring, the more likely it's going to have very little to zero bacteria in it. And I've measured numerous springs around the world. In fact, I've hunted spring water on every continent on Earth except Antarctica. And I've found that the bacteria content of those springs is extremely low to nothing, which is really shocking. I mean, how could water be coming out of the earth and have no bacteria in it? And that's just part of the mystery of spring water. And another thing about that mystery is how come the water comes up, right?
I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, what is making this happen? Like, is it a vacuum style situation where because the water is springing up, it has to fill that empty void of a space, and then it continuously does that? But I mean, it always seems to be located on this small hill or some kind of mountain that is kind of formed out of the bedrock. Like in our case, it's Mont Saint-Hilaire for the people in Montreal who are listening to this. The one we went to is Mont Saint-Hilaire near Belleuil and stuff. And the way it's located is that everything around it is completely flat. And then you've just got this one random mountain, and it's owned by McGill. I don't know if you know McGill University for some reason owns this, and I kind of know why at this point. And then it has this basically, it's literally out of nowhere, and then it's got like, it seems to have 7 different spring sorts based on kind of our surveying of the area, but all of them are incredibly clear. I cannot tell you, we've been drinking it all week since we got that spring water. It's super healthy, it's super fresh all the time, and it doesn't have all these things that I know, I don't want to go too far into it, but it doesn't have these fluorides and all the chemicals that you've researched and that everyone is talking about. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that spring water is good for us. How do you store your spring water? How do you manage? How do you actually go about using it in your life? And how do you bring it on the road with you?
Okay, great. Well, one of the things I do is I have glass bottles, and I used to have the big ones, like the 5 to 6 gallon.
Mm-hmm.
What were those? Those like 25 liter, 30 liter big ones, and it's too difficult to manage. I've broken some. I remember one I broke. It slipped out of my hand. If you look at my finger right there on the end, it almost cut the end of my finger off because I dropped it. I tried to catch it. It had already hit the ground and sheared, and just touching it almost sliced my finger off. Wow. So I recommend going for smaller, more manageable bottles, anywhere from 1 gallon in size or 4 liters to 2.5 gallons. Just keep it in something that's very manageable. For example, let's say you're not very strong, you're in an area that's icy, go with the 1 gallon, don't mess around. And I have a very good friend of mine, she's just been doing that for years, and she just gets with the 1 gallon jugs, 4 of them fit in a box. She goes out with her van, she fills up 16 boxes at the spring water, which is quite a lot of spring water. She stores them in her basement. So you want to store them in an area that's basically in the earth, like a basement's very good, away from direct light and away from a heat source, but that is not cold enough to freeze it. It's very difficult to freeze spring water anyway. You can't freeze spring water unless it's motionless and sitting there for a long time. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, the spring water can last, depending on the source, anywhere from a week to 2 months. I go to a spring north of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I have an office up there, and I've been drinking from that spring for 9 years, and it never goes bad. I mean, I've come back months later, and I have a cork sitting in a glass bottle. I open up that cork, and it's perfect. There ain't nothing wrong with that water, and I can just drink it after 2 months just sitting there. It's amazing. Depends on the spring.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that the lesson here is that unless you try it, you're not going to know. Like to the people who have kind of, I don't want to say a backlash, but to the people who have kind of talked to me about it this week, you just have to try it. Like, I'll bring you a bottle. I have some now. I'll bring you a bottle, whoever you are. Or otherwise, go to findaspring.com. Do you have any recommendations for finding springs or something like that? Maybe is that the best one or something?
Yeah, that's a great resource and website to find a spring. And one of the things I do like to introduce people to is that instinct that's already within you that tells you where the springs are. It's an instinct. For example, the other day I was in Los Angeles. There's a famous spring in Los Angeles that everyone has forgotten about in Griffith Park. And it basically was supposedly dried up. And I just used my instinct to find it. You just follow your instincts, and I found it. And even at the end of the hottest summer on record, it's wet and there's water there, and it was amazing. The animals were there, the deer were there, there was wild fig trees in there, there was beehives in there. All of a sudden, I'm like surrounded by bees. I'm like, oh my God, there's a hive around here. There's 300 bees around my face. So I had to back out of there pretty quick, which was pretty intense. I mean, it was poison oak everywhere and full on, everything, but there was water there, and it just goes to show you that your instincts are still intact. You just have to kind of tune into it, and the way you do that is just by going to places like you've just gone to, springs in your local area, and start tuning into the vibe, and you'll figure it out.
Absolutely. So before we go into dietary habits and those kind of things, which I know you're absolutely an expert on, there's some video that I saw that I think is really interesting to people, that you were talking about positive and negative ions. And you're talking about how there's all sorts of radio waves and Wi-Fi waves and all these things around us, and that even electricity around us is affecting our body. I wanted to know if you can kind of go into some of that, because we've all heard these terms, negative ions, positive ions. Different people talk about them being part of the pyramids and aquifers and the atmosphere. Maybe you can, I kind of understand this again, but maybe you can kind of envelop and teach us a little bit about what this is. What is positive and negative ions, and how are they affecting us?
Okay, well, this was really first popularized by a book written in 1977 called The Ion Effect, which is an excellent book that I recommend that you read. Basically, the atmosphere, like one end of a battery, is positively charged, and the Earth itself is negatively charged. So it's just like a battery. So just imagine you have one side of a battery, that's the positive side, the other side of the battery, that's the negative side. That's the Earth and the atmosphere. And there's a dynamic interaction in between, and that dynamic interaction can build up a real strong potential that can strike off as a lightning strike. Mm-hmm. The atmosphere, let's say the atmosphere is usually let's say it's 3 parts negative ions, or let's say it's 3 parts positive ions to 5 parts negative ions. In this time of the year, actually just about right now, that there's a very strong, it's a little bit higher of a positive charge in the atmosphere, mm-hmm. and that's why the static electricity starts. Mm-hmm. You know how when you just go through that transition into the autumn and all of a sudden you start getting shocked by everything? That has to do with the positive charge in the atmosphere. It's an increase of positive charge. Earlier, let's say in the springtime, you're going to have more of a negative charge in the atmosphere. But overall, the atmosphere is still positively charged. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm saying is that it can fluctuate a little bit. Same with the Earth. In the Earth is negatively charged, but there's places where it's a little bit more negatively charged. For example, a waterfall or the breaking waves at a beach. You can have more negative ions in the Earth and in the water at that spot. And actually, more negative ions get volatilized off into the atmosphere as well. Mm-hmm. So generally the idea is that negative ions are better for us, and positive ions break us down, oxidize us, and age us. Mm-hmm. So again, the positive side of the battery, the atmosphere, breaks us down, oxidizes us, and ages us. The Earth itself makes us younger. It actually makes you like a baby. A baby is pure negative charge. But when you're 100, you've got too much positive charge. That's why we have the calcification, the breakdown of our connective tissue, the breakdown of our collagen. So the idea here is that we always want to be associating ourselves and getting closer to that negative charge. For example, let's say you go to the beach with your kids. You want them to bury you in the sand. That's good for you, and it makes you younger, and it's excellent. I'd recommend doing that for an hour or two if you can. Every time you go to the beach, just say, okay, kids, bury me in the sand. And that's an old trick. That's an old yogi trick, right? It's an aspect of, the immortals say you have to heal yourself with earth. That's part of earth, air, fire, and water. Every day you do an earth ritual. And one of the best ones is bury yourself in earth. Another one, just lay on the earth and touch the earth with your bare skin. Mm-hmm. Because even just touching the earth with your hand allows the charge from the earth, the negative charge, to just come right into your body. Because the earth is expelling negatively charged ions every day, all day long.
Mm-hmm. So if it's coming into your body, are you kind of acting almost as if you're like plugging into this? Is it like almost like something that envelops you and
absolutely
kind of that takes away some of these other positive charges?
Yes. What it does is as soon as you touch the earth, let's just say you touch the earth barefoot. Like, for example, on my computer right now, see that pad I've got?
Mm-hmm.
This is connected, this wire is connected to the ground of this building, the ground wire of this building. So the reason why I'm doing this and why I have this as part of my computer is because the charge of the earth comes up through this line, goes into this mat, which is conductive, and pushes the EMF of this computer off of me.
Wow.
So it's a push. It's not a sink.
Yeah.
The earth, the ground energy is a push. It comes up, it envelopes me and pushes the aberrant or dirty electricity off of me. Now, I've shown that on a lot of YouTube videos, and I've shown that with an oscilloscope, so you can see exactly what it's doing, and it's really, really interesting. But after a while, this thing that I'm using here it's mandatory because you feel it. You can tell, oh, like I'm getting fried.
Yeah.
This is the cause
you feel it.
syndrome. Yeah, you feel it.
You do feel it. And people will argue against this sometimes, but I mean, it's very hard to argue with the fact that if you sit in front of a computer all day, tell me how your head feels. Tell me how everything around you feels. Or even talking on a cell phone for a long time. After a long call, you feel this weird vibe. You feel almost all this radiation flowing through. And to deny that, to not think that this is affecting us is crazy. I mean, we have such a short time span between all this technology being existent and then the rest of humanity and the rest of existence. And we really don't know what the effects of these are. I mean, we've all heard about cell phones might cause cancer, to keep them away from you. It's actually the actual recommendations is that you never put a cell phone up to your ear. Okay, the cell phone manufacturers themselves will tell you these kind of things. But the reality is that all of these things, Wi-Fi everywhere, radio signals everywhere, you name it, it's around us. The question is, you just pointed out a beautiful example of how to repel something like this. But what can somebody do to let this happen? So I've seen this video, for example, on YouTube, and I'll probably link it in the description again. But what can people do to avoid some of this dirty electricity, and what is that?
Okay, so dirty electricity has to do with the 60 hertz sine wave electrical waveform that carries our electricity to us, that makes this computer work, that makes your toaster work, that makes your oven work, whatever your alarm clock, whatever you're using that's an electrical appliance in North America is 60 hertz sine wave. Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically 60 hertz and all the harmonics or the kind of reflections that reverberate up the electromagnetic spectrum of 60 hertz is what we call dirty electricity. Mm-hmm. It's not natural. Your body identifies it as an irritant, and it's a field also. So, like, for example, if I just touch, like, this is the cord of my computer, mm-hmm. Okay? I'm not grounded, and if I touch that or even get near it, if I even just get near it, let's say I come in, like, right here, if I'm even near it, my body will start absorbing the electricity from it. Even though I'm not touching the wire itself, the field will start dishing out that dirty electricity. It's an irritant. Mm-hmm. Now, if I'm grounded, any low frequency radiation, like anything in your walls, anything in your any appliance in your house, will be pushed off by 100 to 200 times by being grounded. So you're basically, what I'm saying is you're at least 100 times more protected when you're grounded than when you're not. Now, what does grounded mean? One, it means, let's say you're in the basement, like I am right now, with a concrete floor. If I touch that with my feet, the Earth's field comes into me and pushes this off of me. Mm-hmm. Let's say I've got a carpet, like
what happens? What happens if you're touching with a sock or a carpet or something like that?
It's not going to work. You're insulated. You're insulated. Let's say you have a shoe on. You're insulated. Let's say you're on a wooden floor. It's insulated. Let's say you're on the second floor. You're insulated. So it's not going to work. So you're going to be getting fried. Mm-hmm. So my friend Clint Ober developed this technology, which is the grounding mat. This is actually called a universal mat. It's an earthing system called a universal mat. It's an epic device. It will inevitably, every single computer in the world will be grounded properly or come with a mat inevitably in the future, because the research on this it's conclusive, and it can be proven in 5 seconds with an oscilloscope, where I can show you how much EMF is hitting me just from sitting in front of this computer, and as soon as I'm grounded, it's 100 times less.
Absolutely. I mean, I saw the video of one of your most popular videos where it basically is a mind-blowing experiment. It's entitled that on YouTube, and it really absolutely quickly, you had the 60 hertz kind of, and then all the harmonics, which was definitely affecting you, and also affecting you. And this is important for people to know. Just because you have a light in the room and it's off, it doesn't mean that the electric current is not flowing. There is still electricity flowing around you all times. Your socket always has electricity. Just because nothing's plugged in there doesn't mean it's not emanating. It doesn't mean it's not there. So people really have to understand that. This is one point I really wanted to bring forward. And then the next thing is that if you're around it, and we're always are, everywhere you go, okay? We're constantly surrounded by this. You have to be weary of the fact that this is affecting you. And it's affecting your mood. It's probably affecting your metabolism. It's probably affecting your concept of daytime and nighttime with staring at bright screens and these kind of things. And that's another topic to some degree. But the reality is that this is affecting you everywhere you go at all times. So I want to talk a little bit about this solution, because I don't want to. This is not a podcast about only exposing problems and not painting what people could do. So you pointed out this mat that your buddy developed. What other solutions, like what are things that people could do on a daily basis that will help protect them from most of their exposure? Obviously, at times they're going to wear shoes, they're going to wear whatever, all these things happen. But what can they do to help protect them most of the time in their daily lives? What habits can they shift today that will help this?
Okay, well, one of them is just knowing that when we get radiated by appliances like your computer, you're going to have to neutralize that. So you're going to have to go out. The best thing in the world to neutralize it is to jump in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It will instantly be off you, gone, like that in 1 second. This is also, you'll notice if you go long enough doing this, you're going to also notice that as soon as you jump in the ocean, other things that are going on up here, electromagnetic storms like emotional turmoil, is also gone in 1 second once you jump in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
The colder that the ocean is, the better it works. So the colder that water is, the more electricity it has, and the quicker, or the more negative charge it has, and the quicker it's going to push that stuff right off of you.
Really?
Let's say you live in an area where all you have is a lake. Okay, jump in the lake. Let's say you have a river, a creek, or a spring. Go jump in that. So let's say you only have a shower. Now, if you're in an older house, something built before, say, 1990 or 2000, you're not going to have any plastic in the water pipe at all. Now, you're going to have a filter on your water because you don't want to be bathing in tap water. So you need to have a filter, or you're going to become a filter. And the water itself is grounded. So when you get into a shower, usually that's when all these good ideas come in. All of a sudden you go, oh, that's the solution. It's because you're grounded. That's a big reason why you all of a sudden have great ideas and your brain's working. So that's another way to do it. Even washing your hands in water that's connected to a metal pipe that goes in the earth is grounded as well. So even just washing your hands can neutralize a lot of this. Another thing is walking barefoot in the park. For example, barefoot on grass is really nice. Or there's an attachment that electricians wear. Actually, in America, you have to wear it if you're an electrician. It's two little straps that go underneath your shoe that wrap around. One little wire wraps around your ankle, so it's touching your skin, and then it goes underneath your shoe, and it grounds you while you're wearing a shoe.
Really? So
that's a really cool device.
I mean, yeah, I have to ask you, do you have these shoes?
I have them. Yeah, well, I have the device. You can wear them with any shoes. You can wear them with boots. I can get them if you want to see them. Do you want to see them?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Because I would love to show people.
It's just right here. One second.
Go for it. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing to hear about all this stuff. I mean, to not let this be dead air, but I mean, everything he's talking about here, you guys need to read up on and check out, because it's absolutely true.
Okay. Here they are. So let me show you how this system works. Okay. This is one of them, okay, right there. And so what this does, this bit right here hooks onto the bottom of your shoe. So this is going to be touching the ground right here. Okay.
Yeah.
And then this part right here will strap over the top of your shoe. So it's completely hooked on your ankle.
Okay.
With your shoe on. So you have your shoe on. This is a silver wire strap that wraps around your ankle. Wow. So I'm going to just show you with my foot how this works.
Okay, I totally get it. Yeah, I'm seeing how this is coming together here. So it's basically a piece of metal that's on the bottom of your shoe, and then it kind of wraps it through the silver wire and makes that happen.
Yeah, and then this part right here wraps around your ankle like that. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I totally can see that.
Okay, and then your shoe would go, obviously I have a shoe on.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you're grounded while you're walking around.
Wow.
Now, I do this in big cities just for fun because I'm the only one in the whole city. There are millions of people in New York City, and I'm the only one in the whole city who's actually grounded. That is a unique experience, super unique. It's interesting, it's very interesting, because you're basically what it means is I'm carrying a completely different electrical charge than anybody else in that city. So what that means is I'm more negatively charged, which means I attract to me higher quality, positive charged oxygen ions.
Now this is mind blowing stuff. I've read about this before. I've heard about these things before. I mean, I've heard of positive and negative ions being used in pyramids, for example, back in the day, where they think that the pyramids with the aquifers underneath and the I guess it was the gold cap that they used to have were like these power plant type things and structures, and how they were, all the walls are ceramic walls on the inside of the pyramid, and they're perfectly straight, and they're, some people think there's all kinds of theories about this, but the point is that there is Tesla technology that talked about, the positive charges and the negative charges. This is real stuff here, people. Like, you have to understand that this is really affecting you, and this is around you. Now, the fact I did not know that shoe attachment exists, and I'm told that the second this is done, I'm looking into that, which is awesome. But how would you say that it has changed your feeling? I mean, is it partially a mental thing? I mean, obviously part of this is a mental game that you feel better, therefore you're gonna be better. Okay, you think like you're doing something better, therefore you are gonna be better. But how much do you really think plays into this? Like, you swear by this in your mind?
Absolutely, because I've seen the evidence. I've seen over 40 biological markers of health tracked when somebody is grounded versus when they're not. For example, you talked about the brain and your mental state. This is unbelievable. Listen to this. It's been found out that as soon as you ground yourself, your right brain, your imaginative side, is totally unchanged. Nothing happens to your right brain. Your left brain immediately drops in activity instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's super interesting, meaning that the right brain is unaffected by whether you're grounded or not, but the left brain is very affected by it. Now, what is the left brain? Your left brain is your analytical brain, your mathematical brain, your logical brain. So what we've been able to kind of ascertain is that your left brain activity is increased when you're not grounded.
Okay. So if you were doing like a math test, maybe you wouldn't want to be grounded.
Or maybe it means, that's one possibility, or maybe it means that this left brain dominance over a whole civilization where everything's analytical, it's this many dollars, it's exactly that, with all this real precision mathematic kind of logical brain, and the way we use our brains for reason and the way we reason out solutions has a lot to do with being grounded or not being grounded.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely... if you look at the contrast between, let's say, indigenous people and people of today, you could definitely say that the indigenous were a lot more creative and probably used a lot more of the right brain versus that left brain type of mentality. Like you said, very analytical. We care about every penny and every cent, and we've created this realm of importance that we think is life and that we call life now. But the reality is life is happening around us all the time. It's the nature. It's the wind, water, fire, earth. All that is life. What we're doing is just kind of a manufactured version of it, where we're kind of coming together and eating certain things that maybe we shouldn't, and drinking certain things we maybe shouldn't, and walking around with shoes and things that maybe we shouldn't. Not to say that everyone should take off their shoes, but we have to find alternatives. And you just presented one that to me makes a lot of sense.
Right, exactly. I mean, what you're getting at, what you're driving at, is that we should really pay attention to nature's logic and not just discount it.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we can be more in alignment with nature's laws. And what that brings us, actually, it brings us more happiness. It brings us more fulfillment. It brings us a feeling of being in the flow. Where, nature's always in the holy flow. So it brings us that feeling of being in that continuum of the flow. So we, the fears that we deal with, the fears of success, the fears of dying, the fears of whatever it is, or allayed. They're decreased because we're in that flow.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we talk about getting in the zone and the vibe, and we talk about them as if they're kind of things that kind of don't exist, but most of us do believe it and we do feel it, right? There are vibes around us. We do feel when a microwave is working. We do feel when a girl across the room looks at you, or somebody of the opposite sex. You do feel when somebody's mad at you or happy or sad or whatever. You do feel great when you go to the beach and you put your feet on the ground, where you do ground yourself and go out in nature and see these things around you. So we gotta value doing more of that. We gotta value these alternatives. The problem is that we're not hearing about these alternatives. I feel like there's a general disconnect between, the internet is a beautiful thing, and let me talk about that real quick. The internet is something where we have all of this information. We have literally everything we could possibly ever think of at the click of our fingertips. But the reality is there's also a lot of junk information. There's so much information on all of this stuff. The question is, where do you get this information? How do you know whether this is true or not? Is this a conspiracy theory or not? We talk about fluoride in the water and it being bad. I know it's bad for us. It's definitely not good for us, that's for sure. I mean, let's forget about even talking about bad. It's clearly not a good thing for us. The question is, there's such speculation on both sides that we don't know what to do, and therefore we have this situation of inaction. Right? And I'm sure you in all your conferences and talks and things that you do, what you're basically inspiring at the end of the day is for people to take action. You're kind of telling them things that I think they inherently already know. They obviously are informing them in a way that their left brain and right brain and everything is completely understanding it. But what other things can people take action on today? So we talked about this. I'm definitely going to look into it. Other people should. What other things, what areas of life are people not accounting for? What action can they take today that you think would better their life? If there's one thing that you can suggest to people.
Oh, I think improve the quality of your diet is an enormous principle of success and longevity and feeling good and just reconnection, overall reconnection. And one of the things that I recommend and I've been recommending for 20 years is raw foods. Mm-hmm. Raw foods, the way that nature has presented the food to us, what's natural, is a very important part about reconnecting to the earth and reconnecting to the world and actually getting interested in growing food permaculturally, for example, because all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I just grew this tomato. I'm not going to fry this tomato. I just grew the thing. I'm just going to eat it as it is and then enjoy the deliciousness of it. Mm-hmm. And raw food is a big part of it. I think also sorting out and normalizing nutritional deficiencies, which are rampant. We have way too much of certain nutrients in our diet and far too little of other nutrients in our diet, which raw food can be helpful with, but also just having an overall balanced diet and getting very clever about our nutrition. That's another factor of diet as well. And then there's the old saying, we've heard it before, you are what you eat. But I remember reading the Upanishads. There's a little tweak on that, which I really like. And I want you to take a good listen to this one, sure. Which is this is from the Upanishads.
Sure.
The subtle energy of your food becomes your mind.
The subtle energy of your food becomes your mind. Okay, I kind of see where you're going with that. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on how you think that maybe physically happens, how that, chemically is happening or whatever?
Yeah, well, I would say, let's just go right to the metaphysical side. If the food is grown with greed, if it's not, there's no love in it, if the farmer doesn't really like what they're doing, if it's delivered to you by a trucker who's angry, if it's brought into a supermarket and the people in the supermarket are not happy with what's going on, if all of that's happening at the same time, and then you get the food and you're emotionally upset, and then you eat that food can't be good for you. And in fact, it's going to affect your mind and replicate those same emotions that have been absorbed by the food the whole way from the time it was picked or grown all the way to you.
Absolutely. There are studies I'd like to point to that talk about, like, if you put, we've seen these studies or probably heard of these myths kind of before, these semi-rumors that we don't know whether are true or not, that if you put a plant in a living environment with, like, maybe, let's say, opera music or some beautiful sounds, nature sounds, and then you put that same plant in, like, a very bad environment, the difference but you get provided the same nutrients, the same amount of water, the same sunlight, all those kind of things, the difference that'll create to this plant, that the energy that this plant will emanate out, is going to be very different. The nutrients in these plants are going to be very different if they're growing fruits or vegetables or whatever. The same applies to water, right? Water crystallizes in different ways depending on different vibrations of sound and different harmonics of life, right? Like all these things around us are affecting us in ways that we just don't see. And just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. We don't see the air that we breathe doesn't mean it's not there. We don't see the Wi-Fi doesn't mean it's not connecting. We have to understand that all of these things are connecting us around us, but how do we where do we start with diet? For example, I personally am somebody who's new to permaculture, and I'm learning. And 2 years ago was maybe the first time I ever planted anything in my life, other than maybe in a high school project or something. And slowly but surely, I started realizing that my habits needed to shift. And I'm not perfect. I still, at this point, up until very recently, had a very bad diet, and I'm now trying to go to everything, buying everything organic. I'm not on a raw vegan diet. I have tried it for periods of time. But what are the steps that people can start taking and moving in that direction? Like, what's the first thing they should change?
Okay, well, first of all, I think it's really important to understand what you want to do is build healthy disciplines or healthy habits. It's not about a diet. It's not about I have to do this because he said, she said. It's not that. It's you got to like every day get certain things in. Just like you get a workout in every day, you got to make sure you drink your water every day, at least 2 liters of water every day, just to make sure you're hydrated. You got to make sure if you can, and if it's in season, to have a salad every day, no matter what else you're eating. Have an organic salad every day. You want to, if you can, have a fresh organic vegetable juice every day. That's a super powerful principle. It's just having fresh organic juices. And then, of course, if you can every day, to have some kind of, instead of maybe the old story, which was the supplements and whatever else, the B vitamins, whatever that was going on in those little pills, actually getting that from food. And we call that the superfood smoothie. So you get your NutriBullet blender out, right? You get your blender out, you pop that thing on. And you throw in there your goji berries, you throw in there your cacao, your maca, your blueberries, coconut water, or whatever kind of water, spring water, and then a little bit of kale. And I like honey. I'm a beekeeper, so I'll throw a little honey in there, and just bam, you're just zipping that up, and you're getting the real nutrients liquefied, which is the entire premise behind digestion anyway. We got to liquefy our food. If you eat a steak, you got to liquefy it. So just keep that in mind. Anything you eat's got to be liquefied. And that's why I like the blender so much. It just liquefies everything for you automatically. And then you get that in. And so these are just like little disciplines each day that you make sure you get them in no matter what else is going on. And then let nature take its course, and it will do what it has to do to you and your body in its own time to correct the bad habits.
So speaking of bad habits, so I fully agree. I mean, liquefying your food, like you said, your digestive system is doing that anyway. You might as well help it out. The more you help it out, the less energy from your life goes into your stomach and processing all that food. This is why we pass out after Thanksgiving dinner. It has nothing to do with the tryptophan. It has everything to do with how much you're eating, and like maybe not you're wolfing it down and you're not biting it enough and that kind of stuff. But yeah, liquefying your foods, superfoods. We'll go into superfoods in a little bit. I want to talk about quickly. I want to have your opinion on what is, first of all, should people be taking any vitamins? Like, okay, hold on. Let me back that question up. How do you know, or what would you recommend people do to know whether they're deficient in something, what state they're at today? Like a lot of people saying, oh, I'm pretty healthy, I'm not fat, or I'm not this, whatever. I can run a kilometer. I'm fine. The reality is I think a lot of us, most people are probably violently dehydrated. Most people are definitely missing a whole bunch of nutrients and essential metals and things in our bodies. What is the first step to maybe revealing something like this to people?
Okay, well, one thing you could do, you could go to my friends over there in Toronto at CanAlt Labs. CanAlt Labs. It's either .com or .ca.
Sure.
CanAltlabs. And they do hair mineral analysis.
Okay.
And that's so they've been doing that. They've done tens of thousands of them, and they've correlated it to the people's case histories. So they know, like, for example, when iron starts to show up at 600 parts per million in somebody's hair, they know that person's pretty close to either a heart attack or has full-blown cancer or is going to be dying very soon. If it's 800 parts per million, that person is in critical danger and could die at any moment.
Wow.
Yeah, there's stuff that's been figured out. And it's just hair analysis, so it's great. And that's where I would start, is just get some kind of a biomarker. Now you could go
So you
deeper.
can literally, well, hold on. You can literally cut your hair, send it to these people in Toronto, Canada, give or take area, and they will analyze all of this for you and send you it back with like, this is what it is, this is what it is. And do they also give you what this could mean? Like,
Yes.
so they basically break it down. They almost give you like a diagnosis of some sort, saying you're healthy in this area, you're lacking in zinc, you have too much iron, you have whatever it is.
Yes, and then they'll give you a breakdown of that, and then they'll even go deeper again later in the report. Now, one of the things that came up for me, for example, is that I had really high silver in my body.
Oh.
Now, here's the thing that's really cool about CanAlt Labs is that Pierre Baumier, who's one of the main guys there in Ramiz, these guys are colleagues. They know, they've researched. These guys, like Pierre, is on the Nobel Prize committee for awarding the Nobel Prize in chemistry.
Wow.
He's high level, and so they are aware of things like this. If you have high silver, it's unknown if that's good or bad or ugly. It's unknown. They don't know. So they say that. They're like, we don't know. We don't know what this means, but you have high silver.
Are you drinking colloidal silver or something? Is that?
I like silver a lot. I use colloidal silver occasionally to brush my teeth.
Okay.
I don't use it every day. I definitely always have it with me just in case I cut myself very badly, or someone I know or someone who's with me cuts themselves very badly, because it's an excellent antiseptic.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things that was unusual. I was like, yeah, that's I'm super high in silver. But then I kind of was like, well, in my opinion, that's good.
Yeah,
you'll get stuff like that, and then they'll give you suggestions and strategies on how you can switch things around to improve your overall health. For example, let's say you're super high in nickel. Mm-hmm. One of the things they'll recommend is infrared saunas and high amounts of zinc to displace that nickel out of the mitochondria, because the zinc needs to get into that receptor site, and if nickel's blocking it, it bounces off. So if you constantly are detoxifying that nickel, for example, you could use glutathione, methionine, the amino acid. There's a bunch of different strategies, but infrared sauna is a good one too. Detoxification clays like fulvic acid. Eventually, the nickel will come out and the zinc will go in. So you need to kind of do both those at the same time. So you get some advice like that.
Mm-hmm. And what about magnesium? I've been hearing a lot about, and I've actually recently been taking what are called ZMA pills, right? Zinc and magnesium doses. Now, some people take it for different reasons, whether it's muscle recovery and testosterone recovery. Some people say, other people say it's dream enhancements. And I've noticed that for sure, having taken these ZMA pills, that my dreams are just off the charts. What about magnesium? Is there anything that you know about that?
Magnesium is the most deficient major mineral in our diet. It's very important. It's ridiculously important. It's the most important alkaline mineral. So, for example, it's way more important than calcium. Way more important. I would never take a calcium pill. Magnesium I might take as a pill, but I get enough magnesium from chocolate. I get enough magnesium from chlorella, and I get enough magnesium from the green leafy vegetables that I eat, because chlorophyll contains the magnesium ion. I also bathe in high magnesium waters.
Really?
Yeah, like salt waters that have high magnesium, like sea salt in water. And a lot of magnesium can be absorbed through your skin.
Yes, which is very, very absorbent as a material, obviously. People forget about this, but your skin is absorbing everything around you at all times. You're basically like a big sponge. And so that's awesome. You mentioned something. So you're taking salt baths?
Yeah.
What kind of salt? Like Dead Sea salt style?
Yeah, if I have Dead Sea salt, absolutely I'll keep doing that. I was at the Dead Sea this year actually, and that was amazing. Then I brought a bunch of salt back with me, which was cool.
Awesome.
And so I'll do that. Or let's say I only have sea salt, I'll use sea salt. Let's say I only have Epsom salt, I'll use Epsom salt. Whatever I got, but it's got to be a reasonably good quality salt.
Okay, and how much are you putting into your bath when you're doing this?
Probably more than is legal. At least, you remember those old film canisters? They're like that, about that much.
Yeah.
At least that much equivalent amount of salt into a normal bathtub is what I'll use.
Wow. Okay. Cool. That was a slightly off topic. You mentioned chocolate and stuff, which I know you're profoundly into. my father is very much into this kind of stuff. My father actually makes sea salt and sells these little sea salt things and bath salts and all those things. He does other stuff and completely unrelated. It's just one of those things that he believes in. I've kind of danced with, but I haven't gone there yet. I'm at the point where right now I'm shifting radically, and I think a lot of people are at this point where I know I'm unhealthy. I feel it. I know what I was doing is unhealthy. I know the foods that I'm eating, and even at the restaurants or whatever, even if I eat a salad, it's got way too much salad dressing on it. Like, I know that I am not eating where I need to be. And I'm at the point now where I'm transitioning through it. And a lot of people, see, part of Valhalla is that, we know everything and we have this smug about us. No, we don't. I don't know everything. We're not at the point where we're fully self-sustainable. And that would be the ideal situation, but we got to move there. But yeah, I mean, everything you're talking to me about, going back to that hair thing, though, I think that's something that everyone should do, is knowing where you're starting, right? So that you could see the results. Because I feel that actually will help people transition more. Whereas if they know where they started, they know that they had this deficiency and that deficiency, or they maybe should eat more of this or whatever it is, or that they should hydrate more, take that result and then start eating healthy, start eating raw foods, start eating your honeys and cacaos and your chocolates and all those kind of things. And from there, you will be able to see, do that at the beginning, do that at the end, and then see what the difference is. I think that is that will spell a lot of differences in people's minds, more so than just how they might feel, because it's very ambiguous, right? You feel better and better every day. It's kind of hard to remember how you felt before, to some degree. I mean, you will drastically improve to some people, but to be able to see it in somebody who is fairly healthy, you really would love to have those measures, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's good to have the markers. I mean, one thing about Western medicine that's really cool is you can actually get the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's uncool about Western medicine. Western medicine is terrible at long-term, age-related chronic problems and toxicity-related problems. Terrible, worst ever. Modern medicine's amazing at putting you back together if you're broken up in a car crash or motorcycle wreck, right? So this thing of like saying, okay, we can put somebody back together, and then saying we can deal with age-related chronic degenerative conditions that are, either associated with stress or toxicity. You can't put those are different fields. Those are different areas. I know that very intimately because my mom and dad are doctors, and I grew up in that kind of environment. And I'm amazed at the wonders of modern medicine and putting people back together. I'm also amazed at how ridiculous the medical system is at dealing with chronic age-related, stress-related, toxicity-related conditions.
Toxicity is an interesting topic here because, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Because I know it relates to what you eat and stuff as well, and we'll get back to the superfoods very quickly. But there's a lot of studies that are showing that if you have an alkaline body, that this is affecting your state, and that cancer and all these things deal with kind of the pH in your body and the toxicity of your body to some degree. What do you know about that? What are your thoughts on some of these studies and that type of school of thought, I guess?
Well, there's so many different definitions as to what an alkaline body is. So I'm going to tell you what the official definition is, and this is what I'm going to roll with. The official definition is alkalinity means you have a surplus of negatively charged electricity.
Okay.
Which means that you're negatively charged. So I think we can kind of figure that one out, which means that, okay, if we're negatively charged in alkaline, then we don't have any inflammation in our system. Whenever we have an inflammation, or let's say in nature there's a fire, that's a positive charge. In fact, it's a runaway positive charge. That's why you have the breakdown of metals. That's why iron will rust. It's losing electrons. It's losing its negative charge. Okay, so inside of us, that's what happens if we have an inflammation, especially that goes on year after year after year, and we're not ever able to put that fire out, then we're going to start losing electricity. We're going to go acidic instead of alkaline. And due to that electron deficiency, we're going to develop even more severe problems down the road, which could end up as cancer.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that inflammation, just kind of quickly thinking about it, if you're negatively charged and then part of how you restore that negative balance is to positively charge yourself to inflame, isn't that kind of what cancer is kind of doing, right? It's spreading, it's growing, it's inflaming within you. I mean, obviously that's not a scientific version of what we're talking about here, but there is so much that deals with that and why you have an alkaline body, why you have an acidic body. So that this is the door opening to superfoods. What are the things that people can eat to maintain the type of body that you would advocate that they should have, and that most people in your field would probably agree with?
Okay, well, first, fresh food has higher amount of negatively charged electricity. It's more alkaline.
Mm-hmm.
Vegetables, green colored foods, green leafy foods, and in fact, all richly and brightly colored foods are loaded with electrons.
Mm-hmm.
The antioxidant complex itself, what antioxidants are color pigments in plants. That's what they are. They're color pigments in plants, and they are reservoirs of negatively charged electricity. So right there, we would go, okay, wait, maybe I'm supposed to be eating like the colors of the rainbow and as fresh as possible. That's really what we're talking about. Or we go to superfoods that are just extraordinarily high in antioxidants. For example, cacao, chocolate. Chocolate is the highest antioxidant food in the world of any common food that's eaten in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And by a long shot, it's 20 times higher than blueberries. It's 30 times higher than red wine. I mean, it's way beyond. And those become, as I was kind of referencing earlier, like our supplements,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like, that's where we really can bank on actually getting the nutrients and the antioxidants and the alkalinity that we're really looking for. So
what should they be eating? How much chocolate? Like, let's break this down into like, let's say a daily activity. Okay, let's try and say that it's the average day. What should somebody do in this average day that they're consuming, that maybe they strap on the bottom of their shoe? What are the things that you would recommend for somebody that they can to improve their life today?
If they get up in the morning, drink 2 liters of water, or at least 1 liter of water, drink 1 liter later.
Mm-hmm.
I'd recommend going as long as possible without any food, or just by drinking tea. Or if somebody does coffee, they need to neutralize it with some of the super herbs like reishi or chaga. Now, like for example, in Quebec and in Ontario, we have an enormous amount of interest that's developed. I mean, it's literally probably 1 million people right now that are interested in medicinal mushrooms that are in the local environment.
Everyone's talking about it. When we went to the spring, we were like, "Is that chaga? Is that chaga?" We were going around hunting for it. Everyone is talking about this right now. How mushrooms can restore all this stuff. Anyway, beautiful. There's a lot of people talking about it.
Mushrooms are very gently alkaline,
mm-hmm.
and so the acids in coffee, they neutralize it, and that's been shown. That's been shown in peer-reviewed research that reishi mushrooms antioxidants neutralize and the weak acids in coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, instead of just drinking coffee, which is like a baseball bat on the head, like bam, 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 which is bad herbalism. It's
mm-hmm.
bad herbalism. Let's start being a little bit smart about our herbalism, because that's what coffee is. It's an herbal beverage.
Mm-hmm.
And start bringing in a little bit more gently. So you bring the reishi with the coffee together, and it's like being hit over the head with a pillow.
Okay.
It's like, oh, then you're like, oh, wait,
You can deal with this.
I can deal with this. This
no,
can work.
You said something else that was really important, and that my mom and my girlfriend and everyone around me is going to tell me at all times, or whoever it is. Somebody in my life has always told me this. Oh, you're never eating breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. And I tend to eat later. I tend to eat around now. Let's say noon, whatever it is. That's when I start to saying, okay, now I need some energy. I burned off everything that kind of was stored in me in the morning. I got some things done, and then I kind of refuel. Normally I take a nap right after I eat, so I can digest as much as possible and focus on that, and then kind of move on with my day. Why eat later? Why, in your opinion, should we be eating later?
Well, the idea of break fast is you're breaking a fast.
Mm-hmm.
The longer that you can go fasting, for example, when you're sleeping and that you're fasting, you're not eating anything.
Sure.
Unless you're waking up sleepwalking in the middle of the night and eating ice cream, but even then you still have gone hours without food. So you go through that whole night without food, and then you try to go as long as you can without food, because it allows your body to heal quicker. It allows your body to digest what you've already eaten. It allows a more complete absorption of nutrients. It takes a lot less energy out of your body, because every time we eat food, it takes energy to digest that food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you can have more energy longer. Now you go to that point where you feel like, okay, at this point I can do a drink or something. You just try to break that fast gently, instead of the old idea where I'm going to have a sausage, pancakes, whatever that was, bacon. My God, breaking fast with bacon, and then just drink coffee on top of that to keep going. That's why we're doing it. The reason why you're drinking coffee on top of that is so you don't pass out from trying to digest that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's totally true. I've only recently started having coffee, and as much as I feel that sometimes like coffee is this great pick me up, I also realize that it itself is kind of the problem. It's like the fact that I drink coffee is the makes me need more coffee. It's almost like a drug, like, and it is a drug, and it is a herbal practice, as you said too, which we forget about. We forget about where coffee comes from, and all our food comes
Yeah,
from.
exactly.
We completely dissociate to this, and there's so many problems with coffee, from global warming that comes with deforestation and all that stuff, which is another thing. But anyway, so eating later, breaking the fast with what? Like a smoothie? Is that what you would eat for lunch, for example?
Sure. Yeah, a blended drink. I do it like my NutriBullet, NutriBlast. I'll do raspberry, blueberry, coconut water. If I'm in, if I'm in LA, for example, I'll do raspberry, blueberry, coconut water, and I'll do some super green food like spirulina
Mm-hmm.
or kale. Just boom, just blend that right in. Just that's what I drink in the morning. Or let's say I'm in Ontario in the winter. I'll do shaga and blend stuff into that. That'll be my coconut water, shaga tea.
Ah,
That'll be the base. And then I'll look around, I'll hunt around whatever superfoods I've got around, and I do a lot more honey in the winter because it's just more of a winter food.
yep, yep.
Yeah, and then then I'll progress into the day. Now let's say we get going into the day. Another really important discipline you've got to have is you've got to be able to do quick burst fitness.
Okay.
Quick burst fitness. I'm not talking about yoga. I like yoga. I think yoga's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I like Bikram yoga a lot. I like every style of yoga. I like it all. But I've found over the years, it's not mixed martial arts ground and pound. It's like you have got to have something that kicks your butt to the point where you are exhausted and winded.
Okay.
That's the type of exercise that builds in a woman progesterone and in a man testosterone. It makes you stronger and live longer. So, for example, sprinting is excellent.
Okay.
Running stairs is excellent because it's very anabolic. So I want to put that in there. Now, here's what's also been shown. It doesn't mean you have to do an hour and a half of some kind of anabolic running stairs sprinting. It means you need to do every day 5 minutes of real sprinting. That's all.
Like of really running, like from the hardest you possibly can, run for 5 minutes and really push yourself. It's not about the length of your workout. It's about the intensity. If you can get your intensity up, I'm all for this. I do what is called CrossFit, I guess. It's known as CrossFit. Basically, exercise to exercise, basically very little breaks in between. But the reality is what you're trying to do is mix some, muscle building exercises like lifting small weights and stuff, but really mixing it into an anabolic workout, which is you got to get that heart pumping. That heart is meant to be pumping. You got to be wheezing by the end of it, because if you're not trying hard enough.
That's right.
And that's my, and it's not about, they say some people say the optimal workout is 45 minutes. A lot of people say you can be in shape in, like you said, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. The point is that you just need you can't slack. Go into the gym. Yeah, fine. You lifted 250 pounds, and that's great on your bench press. Not to say that I haven't done this when I was younger, but the point is that you're not getting the workout that you need. You're taking long gaps of breaks in between. You're not really ever pushing your heart to the point where you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to die, or it's going to explode out of you. And that's what you're looking for, because that's what's going to keep you in shape.
That's it. That's exact. That keeps you in shape, and you realize how good of a shape you're in when you're with other people who are working out, and it's tough for them. And you're like, this is easy for me because you've been pushing it, like you're saying, enough times a week where all of a sudden you've crossed over a certain threshold.
Yeah.
I always think of the mixed martial artists, that I know and that I work with, because they're at levels of fitness that are so many levels ahead of me. In terms of endurance, it's like it's inspirational. It keeps me going, and it just shows me like there is really no end to that. What your endurance can be, what that quick burst exercise can look like. It's awesome.
Okay.
So that's it. So then another thing is, this is something we put into our superhero trainings. We've done it for years, and this is a very important principle. Get your time in nature every day. Get your time in nature every day. I don't care if it's 10 minutes walking to the gym or an hour or whatever it is. You need to get some time every day with the trees, with the grass, with the forest, with the ocean, whatever is around you. You need to have that time as a gift to you, as part of your own way of replenishing yourself daily.
Mm-hmm.
Very important principle, because nature's in a symphony and a harmonics, and it's in a certain fractal pattern that the computer isn't, and that books aren't, and the normal day-to-day conversation isn't, and square buildings aren't.
Absolutely. I want to add one thing to that. I went hiking this weekend. I went to Stowe, Vermont, which is a nice big hill, hiked up, feel amazing. We always do. It's the number one thing I want to point out. Every time I go out in nature and I'm like, I could have been doing work, and I have piles of work that I can do all the time. But I never regret it, number one, because it always feels amazing. But number two is that you remember the things that are around you and the things that are important when you're out there doing that. And you also, and I think this is the most important thing that it does for me, is that it actually makes me work more efficiently later. And I'll tell you why. When I'm in front of my computer, when I'm on Facebook or Skype or whatever else, whatever I'm doing, when I'm in this world, where this left brain type world, there's so much stuff happening and coming at me at all times that it's literally distracting me in every which way, shape, or form. And I have a very hard time concentrating at times. And I'm the type of person that gets stuff done to some degree, but I even find myself in a situation where I'm not able to concentrate. If I go out in nature, if I take a walk, if I take a break and kind of breathe in the fresh air, kind of ground myself to some degree, or I do a little bit of yoga, I put myself back in this mental state of clarity where I can focus again. It's almost like in the morning where you have this, the first thing that you do in the morning should be your most important task, because you will have the most clarity in that day, because you will not have been as distracted by all the other things that of life happening around you. And I think going out into nature is not only, it's good for reconnecting, but it's good for mental clarity, for refocusing, because I'm at the point where I'm oversaturated with a whole bunch of stuff, and the only way I ever get it done is sometimes by taking that time to reconnect back to the world around me.
Excellent. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone through a few things. Now, another thing is this is basic food combining. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're at lunch now. All of a sudden, you're at lunch. Yeah. You're like, okay, what do? You have an organic salad, and you have just one food. For example, let's say you normally would have fish and rice. Mm-hmm. No, you're going to either have fish or the rice with the salad. Okay. So it's going to be salad and rice, or it's going to be salad and fish. That's it. Okay. And let's say you're not hungry. Let's say you're really hungry. Okay, have more rice or have more fish and have more salad, or have more rice and salad, but not the fish and the rice together. Okay. Not the bread and the meat together. Not the baked potato and the steak together, because those are a clash. They're a digestive clash. Okay. And this was figured out by Ivan Pavlov. Remember Ivan Pavlov, the dog? Yes. I went back and I studied his original research. It was really interesting. Part of what he found out is that the digestive juices we require to digest protein is completely different than what we need to digest starch. Mm-hmm. And so keeping those separated from each other it's powerful. That changed my life, and that's really what propelled me to where I am today. Because all of a sudden I had so much energy. I was like, what? I mean, I was eating all wrong all these years, because like a hamburger. It's like it's the bread and the meat together. It's a bad combination. And usually we're pulling the lettuce off the hamburger, so you're not getting the salad. So it's
been there, done that. Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So it's interesting here. So you mentioned raw foods before. Now, a lot of people have raw foods in their mind. They're like, oh, veganism and all this kind of stuff, and all sorts of things that have positive associations for a lot of people, but have also very negative associations for a lot of people. Like, for example, I do not believe in veganism in the slightest. Like, I will eat honey, I will eat cheese, I will eat meat, I will eat fish, I will eat pretty much anything you put in front of me. But the difference is, I think there's two things that isn't talked about a lot, more so than the nutritional balance. Something you just mentioned, which is combination foods, right? Eating too much of everything. Going to a buffet is probably the worst thing you could possibly ever do. I mean, you feel horrible right after it, and your body just wants to get rid of it. You just want to pass out. You don't want to do anything. That's one thing. The other thing is portion sizes, which is we are eating way, way too much. We just need to tone it all down. Like, the first time you're going to start cutting back on portions, you're going to feel hungry. You're going to feel like, man, the salad is just not cutting it. Anything I'm eating is just not cutting it. Number one, maybe you should eat organic salads, because you're going to get more nutrients. You're going to feel more that's going to cut it. Yes, it's more expensive, but you can eat less of it, and it will be better for you. Number one. And you're probably helping a local farmer in the process. But number two is if you start cutting back, and this is what I've kind of been doing over the last 6 months, is that I've been eating less and less and less. I've not been breaking my breakfast, right? My fast of overnight, and I've been kind of eating later. And I'm slowly but surely now thinking about doing this liquid diets and eating much less specifically at lunch so that I maintain this energy throughout the day. Now, you brought something that I didn't think about, which is the combinations of the food. It makes a lot of sense that certain foods break down in certain ways, other foods break down in other ways, and that the clash of all those nutrients and all those things might, number one, make us miss out on some of these things when we're digesting them, that there's too much of everything and maybe our body's focused on only absorbing the protein or only absorbing other qualities of the food. So in eating just one thing, what is like, is it always in combination with salad? Like it's kind of...
Yeah, salad is the neutralizer. And basically, to break this down, I mean, this is something I realized very early on in my career. Like, what's a salad? Mm-hmm. It's green leaves.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. A few roots, green leaves, maybe a few seeds, that's it. That's kind of interesting. It's like leaves. And so, I started looking into nature as like, how monkeys eat, for example. Like I remember I was in Bali in the year 2000, and I went to the monkey forest, and I see the monkeys, they'll eat the banana, then they run down, they eat a bunch of leaves, and then they'll eat another banana, and they'll eat a bunch of leaves. I was like, well, they're eating salad every day like that. Mm-hmm. It was interesting to see like monkeys eating leaves, because that's what a salad is.
So this, in your salad, are you putting like other vegetables and stuff like tomatoes and cucumbers and those kind of things?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to. I mean, we call those, cucumber, tomato in particular, are vegetable fruits. They're really fruits.
They are fruits, yeah.
But they digest like a vegetable because they don't have the sugar content. And, the sugar content could cause fermentation. Mm-hmm. So let's say you suddenly put in bananas in your salad or something, you're going to have, you're going to have gas probably. If you try to eat that with a steak, for example, it's not going to work. But if you just had the salad and you had the steak, or you had the salad and the fish, or you had the salad and the chicken, and you just keep it to that level of simplicity, then you're going to digest everything more cleanly, and you're going to be less hungry because your body's going to be like, oh, okay, I understand what this is. Now we know what we're eating. And the same is true with all starchy foods, whether it's rice or bread or potato or sweet potato. You have that with a salad. That's it.
So there's something that's, as you're talking to me about all of this stuff and the combination foods, something is telling me that this makes a lot of sense too in the way that things used to happen back in the past and in nature, which is that if I was in nature and I was foraging for my food, or I was hunting, or whatever it is, chances are I wouldn't fall across the deer, the fish at the same time, the rice, the potatoes, the salad, all in one meal. Chances are I would kill the deer and eat that. Then I would find some salads that I can eat and eat that. If maybe I find a fruit later and eat that. But it's all like, there's time in between. The energy is being spent, and the time to digest those things is in between all of those. I don't think that indigenous people were eating a combination of feasts that put all of these together in one sitting. They were kind of eating it slowly but surely, whatever they had, whatever they would find in terms of being around them. So yeah, this seems to make more and more sense to me the more we talk about it.
It's really, it's the fundamental idea behind primal and Paleolithic diets. Mm-hmm. It's a very key idea, which is it's nature's logic. It's like you can't have all this stuff mixed together because it doesn't make any logical sense. Mm-hmm. But the way we make it make sense in our reality is, hey, okay, salad and whatever else that you're doing, and it's actually, you're going to find it's more fulfilling. A lot of people in the fitness industry just do this anyway because that's how they have to eat in order to stay lean and cut weight when they need to cut weight. And same with the mixed martial arts, or any athlete is usually tuned in on this, unless they're 300-pound offensive lineman or something. They're eating like they have to keep on that kind of like level of mass. Mm-hmm. But the thing about that level of mass and about having that extra weight is you don't live very long. Mm-hmm. I think the average NFL football player, average lifespan is 59 years old.
Yeah, they're dying at an alarming rate. Some people think it's because of their helmets and the amount of impact that they're taking. Definitely plays a part of it. Obviously, if you're smashing your head up against things all day, you're gonna have some side effects. Not to say I love football, so I'm happy that some people do it. But yeah, you definitely, obviously being leaner is going to, how many people have you seen over 100 that are obese? Never.
Yeah, it's not.
It just doesn't happen.
Exist. And so then we have to figure out how are we going to get that weight off, and it's going to come down to nutrition, fitness, nutrition, fitness, nutrition, fitness, and you got to move. You got to move, move, move. You got to move every day, and you got to eat the right things. You got to eat them in the right way.
Okay.
And you know, you need to find out about yourself, and if you need someone to crack that whip for you, man, you get somebody to crack that whip for you.
Yeah, that's a big part of being in fit is just having another person there to keep you going. It's a huge part. Like that's just why I go to these classes. I have like basically a personal trainer who stays on top of me. He's like, hey Mark, like you're not pushing hard enough. You're jumping over that bar, and we're allowed to set it at whatever height we want. To hop over, hop over, hop over. And every once in a while, I slack and I put it a little bit lower than I probably can. And he comes at me and he's like, no, like you could jump way higher than that. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And you start doing it. And I find that you always get through the workout. No matter how hard the workout is, at the end of the day, I always kind of make it through to the end. There's some times where you do like a lighter workout and you make it to the end. And I feel just as tired as if I did a super hard workout. The reality is, though, in the super hard workout, I would have achieved more. I would have got my heart rate up higher. I really would have had that blood pumping a lot more. So, well, that's amazing. I mean, I think we covered everything.
Yeah,
everything from source water.
We covered a lot of stuff, and the best thing is always the easiest thing for a person to do.
Yeah.
Right, so like what we should do is a lot different than what we will actually do. Mm-hmm. So we need to look at those steps that we will do. For example, I talk to people every day and they're like, I'm on the spring water, man. I'm doing that. I'm taking my whole family out there because that's something they will do. They like going out on family outings on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Other people, it's like, oh, wait, you're talking like 5-minute, 10-minute workout? And I'm like, yeah, you do this. You do a minute of squats as fast, as hard as you can. Rest 20 seconds. You do a minute of sit-ups, rest 20 seconds. You do a minute of push-ups, rest 20 seconds. You do a minute of burpees, rest 20, or then you're done. Boom, that's it. That's 5 minutes. You do that, and some people are like, it's only 5 minutes. I can do that. It just depends on what you will actually do. And you just pick that easiest point of entry, and you just go.
Absolutely. That's what people need to really take away from this, and this is what the podcast is all about. Is trying to inspire real action based on the information that these people, guests like you, are giving. Which is, all of these things are doable. You just need to value doing them, and then make them actually happen. And you take one at a time. Don't take everything. Don't drastically change your diet tomorrow morning. You're gonna feel it maybe a little too much. The point is that you have to ease your way into it, start looking at it. Don't take everything we're saying for granted either, you know what I mean? Like, go out there, do your research, see what other people have said about it. But if you want more information, you can check out David Wolfe's website. You probably can check out his event this Sunday, Saturday, not this, well, if you're watching this Saturday and Sunday, the 12th and 13th of October, I know I'm going to be there. I don't have a ticket. Yeah, I don't have a ticket, but I'm going to find my way. I'm going to make my way in there. I definitely would love to shake your hand, meet you in person, and see what more you have to say. Obviously, in an hour, there's only so much we can cover, kind of thing, right? So, but yeah, go actively do that. Go actively make it happen. Whether it's finding the source water, whether it's putting that shoe strap on, which I'm definitely looking into, and whether it's making kale shakes or whatever it is, figure it out. You gotta make it work for you, and it'll make it happen, and that's the way to roll. So anyway, I really wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to sit and talk with us about this, and to inform people on what's going on around them, and to open their minds to other possibilities and stuff.
Fantastic. It's been great talking with you, Mark, and I look forward to seeing you in Montreal. And to everybody out there, wishing you the best day ever, and I'll see you at the Ode de Source.
Yes.